Just days before those new healthcare exchanges kick in and the politics is on. Conservatives in the Senate ready to take a stand against the law, but they are getting plenty of flack, and not just from Democrats, try fellow Republicans. Mark Levin is here to say enough is enough. Welcome, everybody. I'm Neil Cavuto, and here goes Harry.
We're not going to bow to Tea Party anarchists who deny the mere fact that Obamacare is the law. We will not bow to Tea Party anarchists who refuse to accept the Supreme Court ruled Obamacare to be constitutional.
And now here comes Mark, as in Mark Levin, the author of the runaway bestseller, Liberty Amendments. Mr. Levin, what did you make of that? Because at issue isn't so much what Harry Reid has been saying about those Republicans, but what some mainstream Republicans have been saying about those Republicans.
Well, first of all, I just saw a poll that Harry Reid is the most hated man in Washington. Go figure. With his totalitarian mindset, who would be surprised? That's number one. Number two, I have seen these French Republicans before. I have fought them my entire career. Anybody who served Ronald Reagan has fought them their entire career. Margaret Thatcher fought the equivalent of the same in Britain all these years. These are people who are quite happy with the status quo. They want to timidly play around on the fringes, but they like big government. You look at the past administration prior to Obama, the Bush administration. Several of his staffers, as a matter of fact, are commentators on Fox. Bush never...
Careful there, young man.
No,
careful.
I'm just being honest. They're all over the place, as a matter of fact.
Right.
So they're not really troubled by any of this. The fact of the matter is George W. Bush bloated the debt, the second highest in American history, but for Barack Obama. So the problem is the Gerald Ford, John McCain, a Romney wing of the Republican Party has the mantle, but the grassroots wants nothing to do with them. The Tea Party came to be not just because of Barack Obama, but because of the last days of Bush with TARP, with massive spending, with subsidizing GM and Chrysler and so forth. The people have had enough. And when these people and when these moderates and rhinos say we need to be smart, when's the last time they were smart?
Well, let me just review for those who aren't up to speed on this as you are. You know, a lot of people seem to think that Republicans will suffer if they really fight this tooth and nail, risk a government shutdown, a credit downgrade, that sort of thing. And their argument is that it'll only hurt the party and its immediate chances. You used an analogy on your radio program, very fine program, by the way, when you talked about the stance that hardcore conservatives took in 1976, trying to make Ronald Reagan their nominee that year, and came with just a whisker doing just that, ultimately to get the prize itself 4 years later. Mainstream Republicans hear that, Mark, and come back and say, we don't have that amount of time. We can smell victory next year. We can smell victory in 2016. You say what?
They can smell victory where? I mean, where's the so-called mainstream Republican victory? They've had the nominees they wanted. I can't tell you how many times. When have we had great Republican victories? When the conservatives have been in charge. 2 massive Reagan victories, Newt Gingrich victories. And the next big victory will be with another conservative if we can manage to break through the inside the Beltway Republican fortress there. They don't have big victories. They've had time and time. Don't you remember during the last Republican primary battles, the only guy who could win was who, Neil? Romney. He's the only guy who could win, and he lost. McCain, the only guy who could win, and he lost. The fact of the matter is, conservatives are more conservative than Republican. We're not going to be dictated to by these former staffers and ex-politicians and current politicians telling us what they cannot do. You know, take another stand next year on Obamacare and so forth. They do not have a plan for liberty. They do not have a plan for reestablishing the Constitution. They are part of the muck that is Washington, D.C., and some of us have had enough of it.
All right, so when you say conservatives are your best chance at winning, that wasn't the case in 1964 with Barry Goldwater. So what would be the difference?
What was that, half a century ago?
Yeah. I'm too young to remember, but I think you might.
Yeah, there was Barry Goldwater, and he set the stage for Ronald Reagan. And so these are important things to remember. Who did John McCain set the stage for? Mitt Romney?
So this is an important point, Mark, because it's really getting at the crux of this, I guess, internal battle for the soul of the Republican Party about immediate benefits versus thinking longer term. You argue it's about thinking longer term, thinking who you are as a party. Do you acknowledge that in thinking that way, your way, that it would mean and likely almost inevitably mean losing a lot of seats before you start gaining seats?
No, a couple of things. Number one, this isn't a battle for the soul of the Republican Party. This is a battle to restore our republic and save the country. That's number one. The Republican Party today offers nothing, or almost nothing. I don't even know what their strategy is. I don't even know what their agenda is, other than stop Obama. Well, that's not good enough. Of course we want to stop Obama. That's number one. Number two, as I was pointing out, our big victories, whether they're the two Reagan landslides, Gingrich, 2010, are based on liberty, free market principles, constitutional principles. This big government, bloated, gluttonous Obama administration doesn't work, and the people know it doesn't work. They hate Obamacare. So we have on one side Obama and the French Republicans, and on the other side you have conservatives who are having to fight both.
All right, now let's address the French Republicans versus the conservatives, because as you know from my friend and colleague Chris Wallace, when he was preparing for his interview with Ted Cruz, it was also on this show, he said that he was getting a lot of talking points, more like bashing points, from higher Republican Party ups, and he was incredulous at that. What did you think of that?
I think it's disgusting. You know, the Republicans inside the Beltway, the former Bush staffers, the consultants, the operators, the fundraisers, the members of Congress and so forth, the bulk of them, they spend more time trashing conservatives in the Tea Party than they do fighting the people they need to be fighting. And I'm just telling you, they do it because they want to hold on to what power they have. They hope to eke through elections. They think they're going to take the Senate with no agenda whatsoever. It doesn't work that way.
So when you hear Senator Corker and the others, I guess you'd call them rhinos. No, just hear me out. And they say that, look, the numbers just don't help us. In the House, it's one thing. In the Senate, it's another. Even if we were to miraculously win this and defund Obamacare in the Senate, the president would almost surely veto it. And he's got more than enough coverage so that we could never override him. It's the law of the land. Let's have another tactic, another strategy. You say what?
Well, where's his tactic and strategy? That's number one. I'd love to see it. Is it written in invisible ink? That's number one.
So you don't see this as a suicidal mission, and you can defy the numbers. What do you say?
You know, politics is hard. It's like military victories. They're hard. Things aren't handed to you. There's an opposition. There's multiple elements to the opposition. You have to fight hard, and you can't call surrender being smart. With all due respect to Senator Corker, he's a backbencher. He's never been at the front of any of these battles, including conservative battles. He's just more static, like 90% of the members of Congress right now. The fact is that these battles can be won, but, you know, we have Ted Cruz, who's been there less than a year, who's stepping up as a leader, Mike Lee also, but you have the Republican leadership leaking stuff to Chris Wallace to kneecap our own side. And you know what? I wish Sarah Palin's right. I wish we could know the names of these quislings so we can throw them the hell out of the Republican Party.
Mark Levin, thank you. Good having you again.
God bless.
Speaking of which, Sarah Palin will be here tomorrow. She says how these Republican lawmakers vote now could have a major impact on next year's election. And like Mark Levin, for the soul of the Republican Party itself. My special guest at 4 p.m. Eastern tomorrow. And don't forget, we are live in the belly of the beast, as they like to say, or certainly as I like to say, Wednesday, with firsthand reaction to all of this. Kentucky Senator Rand Paul will be joining us, Democratic Senator Mark Warner, John McCain, much, much more. We kick off 4 p.m. Eastern time in our nation's capital, keeping track of your capital. Some might say capitalism itself. And again, 8 p.m. on Fox Business. A whole new revamped Cavuto for you here. Your money, your life, your future, where